Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 44 of the Mutant XPerience podcast. Tonight, I have as my very special guest someone that I have wanted to get on the podcast for quite some time, but we just haven't been able to make the stars align, so to speak. But now they do. And so, good evening to my special guest, none other than telesniper from South Dakota. And
Hey
so
Anthony, what's up?
telesniper, yo, hey, what's up, telesniper? Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for joining me on a lazy Sunday, and
Very
I
lazy.
hope we have some fun tonight. Because like
Oh,
I
for
said,
sure.
I have been ever since Defend the North 2019. Shout outs to Defend
hmm
the North. We've been trying to get this going. We've been trying to hook this up, and so finally, tonight is the night, and so I am very excited about that.
After a year of schedule conflicts.
Yeah, a year of scheduling conflicts. So for those of you who may not know who this man is, Telesniper is most famously known for being the inventor of the 100% Makoto. We'll just call it technique or combo, right? And we're gonna definitely get to that story. But one of the things that I think everyone should kind of know right away about Telesniper is that you would ordinarily think that someone who would invent such a game changing and really your tech Telesniper, and we are going to get more into this later on in the podcast. It
Okay.
really has changed the game. You know what I mean? In terms of opening
Yeah.
up, just kind of how people approach the game as far as risk and reward, and just sort of kind of developing a certain play style and a certain approach
hmm
that has made Third Strike kind of what it is. And so, we're definitely going to talk more about that. But what's so fascinating to me, Telesniper, is that ordinarily you would think that someone who would invent such tech would be a seasoned tournament player, right?
I was you're gonna
Someone
say
who
better.
is someone who would be involved. No, that's not what I meant. Someone who
I'm
was
joking.
more
I'm joking.
involved in the FGC in general. Someone who went to tournaments. But that's
hmm
nothing could be further from the truth, Telesniper, because for all intents and purposes, you were a online warrior. That's
Yeah.
all you did.
Yeah.
And from what I remember from previous conversations that you and I have had, you didn't really play all that much online either, right? It was mostly just kind of you labbing and playing the CPU and stuff. And so it's amazing how such contribution could come from someone of your background, someone who unfortunately kind of grew up not having a scene around you. But we'll definitely talk more about that. But is there anything you wanted to say about that before we kind of you know get on with the
Yeah.
podcast?
I I didn't realize like how big of a deal it was when I first did it. Like I want to say I was 13 or 14 in California, and my friend had, I think it was training mode on Alex's stage, and he just had Red Makoto, which is what I'm partial to. Can't play it on the actual arcade though. I didn't know that at the time. Anyway, I was, we just played with the normal controller for the Dreamcast, and I didn't know anything what I was doing. And one of the first things that when my friend showed me how to throw, hitting, was it like X and B or X and A on the Dreamcast controller, I would tense up, and as Makoto, I'd hit the right trigger as I was doing it, and I would move backwards. And that was the first experience I knew of Karas, and I had no concept of them at all.
Mhm.
I don't know if you want to start off with this or go to something else, but
Well, I
um,
kind of want to I kind of want to start kind
we're
of further back, right?
okay.
But
Even further.
yeah,
Okay,
even
okay,
further,
go
man. Like
go
like
for
like
it.
how did you get into fighting games? And maybe we won't start too far back, but how did you get into fighting games in general?
I had um, Genesis, uh, Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition, I think, was the first one that I played.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister always played Chun Li, spammed lightning legs, won a bunch of matches. I wasn't very good. Over there, I even have a Genesis controller, but uh, I don't have the cart anymore though. But that was probably the first fighting game I played, which at the time we didn't know anything. We didn't even know why jump kick sweep was the be all end all of sibling rivalries. It was always whoever landed that first hit was just dead. It's just gonna keep doing that. You could never block it. It's unblockable.
Mm-hmm.
But now I know a little bit better.
And so, how old were you when you were not to blow up anyone's age or anything, but you had said that when you first did the 100%,
Yeah,
you were like 13 or whatever.
yeah,
So
I
like,
was. Yeah, I was. I want to say yeah, 12, 12 or 13. I think because I want to say it was 2002. Like I don't know what year the Dreamcast version came out, but obviously it has to be after the arcade.
mhm,
But my friend then also got the PS2 version, which I also tried. But anyway,
mhm.
uh,
So
um,
let's jump to Third Strike in general.
okay.
So how did you get turned on to Third Strike?
Uh, besides my friend just randomly having it playing, and even then we didn't play that much that day. I think that day we ended up playing other games mostly, but
Uh-huh.
it was from videos. It was videos that were scavenged on the internet like pre YouTube,
Uh-huh.
basically, like old, like probably like worse than VHS quality, like Betamax quality, like
Uh-huh.
footage of people doing just crazy things, and I immediately got hooked. I loved the visual, everything, the animation, the
Mhm.
sound, everything. Like the music transitioning between rounds. Even I was like, oh, that's even cool. Like sometimes it's delayed, sometimes it's instant, sometimes it just like flows. It's like
Uh,
cool. But no, it was definitely the videos that got me into Third Strike.
yeah. So would it be fair to say that it was like just like the game itself that made you very excited about Third Strike and that kind of drew you in? Because
Yeah,
for someone like me, right, it's a totally different experience. I came from the arcade,
yeah,
old school FGC scene, so Third
yeah.
Strike was just another means to kind of
Mm-hmm.
continue whatever culture I was part of, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, but for you, it was really like falling in love with the game, and then you got kind of started looking into the competitive side of it. But as far as the Makoto thing, let's just
Mm-hmm.
get straight to it, man. Like tell me the lore, man. Like how exactly did it happen?
So I did it on Alex first, which
Uh-huh.
at the uh, I didn't know,
And this was
and
on Dreamcast, right?
yeah,
Okay.
I did it. I did it on Dreamcast, and
And you
then
did it on the Dreamcast pad.
yeah. But the funny thing is, I didn't know at the time that there was any difference between characters. So like Alex,
Uh-huh.
you don't even need to Kara.
Yeah.
Now I know that. I didn't. I
Uh-huh.
had no clue back then.
Uh-huh.
So the tech could have even not been used when I was actually doing it. It didn't even stun Alex, and I didn't know that there was really a difference in stun
Uh-huh.
bars either because I was
So Ryan,
just a
before you
kid.
go any further, I just feel like we need to emphasize this point, guys. Telesniper first did this on the Dreamcast on a Dreamcast pad. Now, I love Dreamcast. I think it's a
It's a
really
bad
awesome
it's a
system.
bad version though.
Well, the version's bad and everything, but that
Mm,
pad, man, that pad,
yeah.
like,
Well,
I,
I had experience. I had my own Dreamcast at the
uh-huh,
time, and I would play sports games
mhm,
mostly. Like I used to be competitive in sports, mostly basketball, but
uh-huh,
I had MLB games and other things. So I was used to the pad. Like it wasn't like my first time touching a Dreamcast pad.
Mhm.
But yeah, yeah, it's stupid thinking about it.
So again, maybe you touched on this before, and maybe I sort of missed it, but like what day was it, man? Like was it like a Saturday, or like you just went over? Like tell me
Uh,
like how.
no, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was probably a weekend because
Uh huh.
my neighbor. It was my neighbor.
Uh huh.
He lived down the street and
Uh huh.
around the corner, and he had like a lot of games. He
Uh
had just discs everywhere. Like he would be the exact opposite of what you wanted to do for like protecting discs and for longevity. He would just stick them on the table or whatever. There were discs everywhere, but we both had Dreamcast, and he had more games than I did, and he already had the game loaded up in like yeah, it was because it was an orange stage, so that had to be Alex stage because it was
huh.
Alex there. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was, and I remember Red Makoto be like, well, I didn't even know the character's name at the time, and it's like try it out, and so I did, and I was like, oh, what's this do? Because like I didn't know anything about like two button anything like
Uh
throws for light both lights, and I was like, what is this? And he's like, yeah, you hit these buttons. So I was like hitting them with my thumb, and I would just tense up a little bit, and then stand heavy kick would come out before the throw, and then I would just move.
huh.
That's
Yeah.
that's yeah. Uh,
And so how did you start developing the tech? Like so you kind of
it
started figuring out Kara's, and so how did it
uh,
turn to Makoto?
so when when I first did it, uh, I did just Super 2, just
Mm-hmm.
random Super 2, did dash Fukiage, and then dash, and then just did Fukiage. I don't know if I just spammed on the low part of the D-pad and got another Fukiage out, but it hit Alex again. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. It didn't stun him. It didn't do anything because I didn't have heavy punch beforehand. I didn't know heavy punch even connected at the time, like
Uh-huh.
into Super 2.
Wow.
I didn't know you could even move the D-pad fast enough to
Yeah.
do such a thing. But it that's that's basically what ended up happening. I I didn't play it again for probably another like week because we,
Uh-huh.
we didn't we didn't play too much that day. We ended up moving on to other games, and because I think we actually switched over to like Melee. Yeah, I think it was Super Smash Brothers Melee or something. But he also had.
What is it about the 3S melee connection? Why are those two always associated?
Dude, I don't know. Like we didn't play with any particular rules. Like we had Pokeballs and we were throwing them around and hitting each other in the head and stuff. But so there was no, it wasn't like tournament rules. We were just playing like it's a party game. Um, I had a Dreamcast. Sorry, Dreamcast. I had a GameCube as well, and that my sister bought the family for Christmas, and we got uh, NBA Live 2001, Super Smash Brothers Melee, I think a Kirby game, and then something else like Kirby Air Ride, or no, that might have been later. Anyway, we got a few games and some demo discs. I think I probably still have one somewhere around here, but it I the Melee connection. I don't know. I think that was like I took Melee more seriously, like just playing with my brother
Wow.
and a couple of my friends,
Uh-huh.
more than I ever did Street Fighter at the time, like
Okay.
ever. Like so.
So I know we're on the topic of the whole Makoto 100%, but
Mm-hmm.
since we have veered off into this melee third strike connection, I have to tell this story because I don't believe I've told this story before on stream. So TFC 2016 is the infamous TFC where there was a storm and there was power outages and all the tournaments had to be suspended for the latter part of the second day, and it was obviously a very huge event, very memorable event. It was the first Clash of the Titans, and so after the power went out for good on that second day, people were just sitting around, ordering food, just kind of not knowing what to do because obviously, we don't have power. You know what I mean? Like there
Yeah.
is no power. Um, so people are just kind of sitting around and just hanging out, goofing off. And so I'll never forget, one of the players that I met during that power outage was
Hmm.
Golden Apex. Shout outs to Golden Apex, who is a North Carolina Third Strike player, plays Dudley. Shout outs to Golden Apex, huge supporter of the Jazzy circuit. Tweeted a photo of himself wearing the Jazzy circuit, much appreciated. And so I don't know how the conversation veered into this,
Hmm.
but Golden Apex and I started like discussing ideas or brainstorming ideas for this idea for a movie that we had, where what if like and I don't again I'm not trying to speak ill of the melee scene or the third strike scene or whatever, right? But
Gotcha.
we were just goofing around. Probably had some beers in me, and then we were like brainstorming ideas for a film
Hmm.
where the premise is that a bunch of melee players travel back in time and fuck up the Daigo parry. And they like change history
Uh-huh.
forever. And then we were just kind of thinking about, okay, what would happen if that happened, right? Like what would happen if that actually occurred? How would the history of the FGC have been altered? And I
That's
don't
an
know why we
interesting
got
movie
into that
premise.
conversation, but we were lolling it up, man. Like we were just
Hmm.
talking about just wow, this alternate universe. Um, but it's kind of interesting to think about it, right? Like what would have happened?
I,
Um,
Jose.
oh,
um. Uh.
no, V juice, no.
Speaking of the Daigo Parry, I just found out recently that that was done on Supergun.
Yeah, yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah.
I,
On a
that.
desk while he's
Oh
playing on
yeah,
a
yeah,
desk. His stick is on
yeah,
a
yeah,
desk.
yeah, yeah. No, that's. I mean, that's how I play. I can't do like lap play is so. Ugh, it feels bad for me now. But uh, the Daigo Parry though, like from the initial footage that came out, like the infamous video, it looks like Daigo has no health. Like it looks like he has zero health, but he actually has a little chunk of health. And when I knew that, I was like, oh, wait, he could have red parried. He didn't need to fish parry. He could have, guessed and guessed wrong. He could have also parried after the super freeze if he was just neutral. It's a 2 frame window.
Mm-hmm.
Or red parry, also 2 frame window. But he didn't have to fish parry, which because of the cooldown on the parry, like that's just like extra risky.
Mm-hmm.
When I knew that, but then I was like, oh, it also on super gun, so I was like, for some reason, I had it in my mind for the longest time that was on the Dreamcast with the PS2 version,
Oh
and
no,
and
the
I
FGC wasn't gonna
exactly
have that.
yeah. Um, you'd think that something that was as big as that at the time that ended up blowing up so hard
Mm-hmm.
would have further cemented in like bringing CRTs and real arcade hardware to big
Yeah, like
tournaments,
right. Imagine
right?
if
You'd think
Daigo missed
so.
that. Imagine if Daigo missed that parry.
Yeah, the user base would have plummeted. It wouldn't have been yeah, if you go back in time and do that, the user base would just plummet. There's so many people that I know from Third Strike that only got in because of Daigo Parry. That's it.
Uh huh.
Like Evil Moment 37 is the reason why I play. And I from my side, I never owned um actually it's right here. I never owned the uh Dreamcast version myself,
Huh.
but I had the PS2 version
Mhm.
uh, for quite a while, but only played on pad and was just training mode. Not, like nobody um, that I knew wanted to play the game, yeah,
Mhm.
anything of the game. So
Yeah. Yeah,
if it like
2000. Yeah, 2004 was Super Gun, and I know that because that was my first competitive Evo. That was the
oh
first Evo
yeah,
that I competed in, and
nice,
yeah, there was all this. From what I remember, back in 2004, a lot of the discussion. I mean, it's kind of funny because obviously we're going to talk about online Dirt Strike later, right? But like even then, we were like the community was very reluctant to move from arcade to super gun. You know what I mean? Like it's
yeah.
just so funny like now, right? Super guns
Well,
are sort of seen in almost sort of a kind of I wouldn't say like equal footing with
the,
actual
yeah,
arcade setup, but pretty close to it. But I remember when Evo 2004 switched to super guns. I mean,
uh-huh.
there were a lot of people that were upset. Mhm.
I mean I can see the problem. Do you know? I mean, do you know offhand if they played like they shouldn't have played USB. They probably played with the DB15s, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure it was a DB15.
DB15 is on average better unless you have like like a top of the line PCB. Now DB15 is the better solution. So it's not like they were playing remotely close to off of how good arcade is.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
so for all intents and purposes, it is arcade. Like um, I I've asked a few people to try to help get me set up with a super gun because like I have monitors compatible CRT monitors for it, but I haven't made any
Mm-hmm.
progress lately anyway. So
So anyway, enough of that Evo melee third strike business. I think it still would be a good film. You know, I mean, I don't know. I think it would be an awesome film. I mean, but it doesn't. I guess it's irrelevant, right? Who goes back in time? Just as long as
yeah,
Daigo misses that parry, because Justin could very well have gone on to win that set. Not to say that he would have beaten KO, but
exactly. Yeah, KO was and still is a monster, but
but
back
that's
then,
and that's another sad
yeah,
thing about the kind of how people remember Evo
yeah,
Moment 37
yeah.
because
They
obviously the most hype moment was the Daigo parry, but people just overlook just how dominant
yeah, KO was
KO
dominant.
was in that tournament. That dude, like no one could touch him
Yeah,
in that tournament, dog. No one could touch him.
yeah,
It almost seemed like Daigo went in hard the next year, specifically to like kind of avenge what had happened to him at Evo, because
yeah,
like nobody could touch Daigo in 2004, man. Nobody could KO, excuse me. Nobody could touch KO. No one could touch Daigo either, but nobody could
yeah,
touch KO.
yeah. KO won 2 years in a row, right? Then
I
two
think
thousand
so.
three and four. Yeah.
So
So
I mean, but it is what it is, right? It's
the
obviously certain things are going to be remembered because of certain moments out of
yeah,
context.
like I'd be a liar if I said that Daigo Perry didn't influence me
Uh-huh.
in my love for Third Strike. It totally did. When I was interested in watching old videos and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
that reinvigorated my spirits to like want to play the game, like
Mm-hmm.
actually like get into the nitty gritty and actually
Mm-hmm.
play
Mm-hmm.
instead of just be a couch potato.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, and before we get off the topic of Evo 2004, it was also the Evo where Mike Watson beat Master. Okay,
yeah,
and so let's just put that out there. First, I believe that was the first time. No, I'm gonna have to check on that. But it was definitely one of the very few times, because back in those days, the Japanese, we just couldn't, we just had nothing
Yeah,
for them.
yeah,
They were just on some other plane of existence.
yep.
But yeah. But anyway, so okay, going back to the Makoto thing, when did you start kind of like sharing the tech? Like how did you start kind of you know telling
So
people about it? Was it like an
when
organic thing, or did you kind of have a plan? Like, I'm gonna post videos, or how did that work?
I had no means of videos, the only
Okay.
thing that I posted on, and I don't even remember the name that I went under at the time,
Mm-hmm.
but there was a couple like cheat code websites. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if it was GameFAQs or something else, but for a while there was games that I would put in tips and tricks for various games, mostly sports games, but um, I posted about that on some forum, being able to move back if you hit heavy kick just before. I and like I wanted to interrupt you earlier. I don't know for sure. I don't know if Japanese anybody in Japan knew about double fukiage before myself, but I know I discovered it for by myself for sure. But whether they already knew, they could have known, you know, you know, day three on the arcade, because on was it uh, Hugo, Q to some extent as well, and Necro sometimes. And Alex, you don't even need to Kara either Fukiage. You can just do Fukiage dash Fukiage, which is not super hard, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But the other one, when I started doing the Kara one
Mm-hmm.
and going, hey, I can do it against CPU Sean. Like, what's that about, And that stuns him. I still never made the connection. Like, like why? Because I was like 13 or something. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, but to to further the Makoto stuff, if you want to move on to the Chun Li one, the Chun Li one was the one that like was after following SRK and somewhat Event Hubs and a couple other game facts things about Third Strike. I didn't really post much, and on most of them, I just lurked. I didn't even have an account. But
Mm-hmm.
um, when I started playing myself, and I actually had the PS2 version, it I I I didn't. I only played on pad, and even then, it wasn't a good pad at the time.
Mm-hmm.
When Online Edition came out, was when there was just this resurgence of energy and wanting to play. Everybody seemed to be playing it. Like a good chunk of my friends that didn't even seem interested in Street Fighter, they got the game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I used to play like some speedrunning games and stuff like that before Online Edition came out. And I got back into doing Online Edition, and
Mm-hmm.
it was almost a year to the day that Online Edition came out that I did the double Fukiage on Chun Li,
Mm-hmm.
because from following the videos, like there was an infamous video on YouTube that was like called Makoto W Fuki or something like that, with some like Japanese or Chinese characters
Mm-hmm.
that showed double Fukiage on Ibuki and Oro, and I didn't know that was possible, because I didn't know crouching heavy kick Kara moved you further than uh, light kick or medium kick Kara with Makoto. I had no clue. Um, I started trying that out and being like, oh well, it is possible, but like, why is Ibuki so much harder than Oro's? That kind of thing. Like, none of it made sense to me, because I didn't have anything to record frames. Uh, uh, I didn't have the knowledge about emulating the game either. But when Online Edition came out and I started following SRK a lot more, people were talking about uh, the the Chun-Li double Fukiage is impossible. It's impossible. It's impossible. Impossible. I'm stubborn. I'm pretty stubborn when it comes to a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty bad fault of mine.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, the lore behind that, if you want to get into it now,
Yes,
uh,
let's get into it, man.
was there was some Nico video that somebody posted on SRK under, it might have been the Oro or Goki subsection, and it linked to this video for Kuroda that he was doing a bunch of just different things, like you know the infamous Goki SA1 medium punch dash demon flip, where he like dashes and demon flips over Ryu or Ken for a mix up. Um, Against Ken, because he wakes up a few frames quicker than Ryu does, Kuroda started doing crouching medium punch as a frame kill, which is faster than standing medium punch by like 2 or 3 frames.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would flip over Ken and then would be in a perfect position. You still see Gokis, even really good Gokis that do the demon flip setup, still do stand heavy punch. Start doing crouching stand medium punch. Start doing crouching medium punch, and you'll get that mix up more often on Ken specifically. Anyway, he was going off of different things, like showing some like Oro stuff and some Goki things like I mentioned, but then he loaded up Makoto versus Chun-Li Super 2. And I knew he played 99%, like Super 1 as Makoto. And even then, Kuroda, having good execution, would drop double Fukiage at even in his like Makoto DVD. He anyway. He showed off the trying to do double Fukiage on Chun-Li,
Mm-hmm.
and he couldn't do it. And he was trying to do it with 2 dashes, and I was sitting there, or laying. I was laying, watching my computer screen from my bed, and I'm like, "That's no, that's not how you go about it." Like when the OE first came out, one of the first things I even tried was double Fukiage and Chun.
Uh-huh.
I was like, we got save states now. What?
Mm-hmm.
We got save states. I'm gonna do it. I'm going to do it. Like it wasn't any sort of doubt in my mind. It took about a year, but but what ended up triggering it was Kuroda not being able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I was very sleepy when I was watching that Kuroda video, and then I was like, I'm gonna load it up really quick. I went training mode. I went far side, and I didn't know at the time that there's differences in spacing for Super 2 with Makoto on player 1 side and player 2 side. It only affects certain characters, like it affects Ibuki, it affects Chun, somewhat Elena, but I didn't know that. I just happened to get lucky and did heavy kick super from the right side, and I save stated. I tried everything I could possibly think of, like backdash, forward dash, light kick, Kara, all these things. I tried so many different ones, and I couldn't do it. And then I was like, I remember reading somebody say that the hitbox, or the hurt box on Elena and Chun-Li is pretty similar. I was like, I know you can do the stand light kick, the delayed Fukiage stand light kick Fukiage on Elena. So I tried it on Chun, and I just so happened to be lucky doing heavy kick super from the right side, which always has a consistent spacing. I buffered dash and then did light Fukiage, and then I started doing. I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. So I started doing save state right as I was about to do the Fukiage.
Oh.
So I started going. I did the input save state, and then again, this is all on controller. And so the input for the stand light kick, Fukiyagi is obviously just stand light kick, forward, down, forward, light punch. I couldn't do that fast enough with my thumbs. My thumbs weren't fast enough for it. So I found a shortcut for it. I actually used the analog stick, but only for the second Fukiyage. I would start to do a half circle down, hit light kick, go half circle, return neutral, hit light kick, then hit down forward, and then light punch. And it was just within the timing of the buffered window that allows you to actually do a special. Um, and so I did the first Fukiyage input, and then save stated, went unsave state, light punch, and then at different times to try to get her to be as close to possible with bouncing her. And then I did the swoop, release, press like that, just doing that like really fast. And it landed one time, and I chucked the controller. I just chucked it up. I jumped. I don't think I've jumped that high ever. Um, I I was completely awake for like the next 5 hours when I was almost dead asleep, and I was like, "What did I just do? What did I just do?" And so for the next few hours, I went through and tried to figure out exactly what I did and how to recreate it.
Uh-huh.
And normally, under normal circumstances, you can't easily do heavy punch into heavy super for Chun-Li. Because I thought, I've never seen any Makoto player do heavy super onto Chun, ever. Only in, like, random neutral, and, it almost never connected. Chun-Li, by the way, has the closest hurt box, or the hurt box is, she needs to be the closest to the edge of the screen to actually connect a Karakusa to heavy punch to super. Other characters, like every other character, can be further towards the clock, but Chun-Li happens to be just that frustrating to play against, that she has to be that distance. Anyway, so I was like, why does heavy kick super even connect? And I found out it was because I wasn't good enough execution wise to do instant heavy punch almost ever. I would always do neutral heavy punch after Karakusa. And the thing is, you have I want to say like a 5-frame window, 5-6 frame window or something, setting her down for after Karakusa for heavy punch. But if you wait until the latter 2 or 3 frames,
Mm-hmm.
Makoto moves away from Chun-Li and actually moves the screen back with her.
Mm.
And when you do that, you clip the top of Chun-Li's head with heavy kick super, and which allows the combo to work. Or that's what I thought at the time. I thought maybe it was that. Maybe it's because I do the walking, because I do that little swoop before the stand light kick. Maybe I walked a pixel or two, swooped, then did it. So I was like, I'm pretty sure I walked. That's probably why I'm doing it. Maybe I'm walking before the first Fukiyage as well, because I'm also doing it very slow. So I made all these notes, and I wrote a big post on our notepad, post, everything I wanted to, talk about. Basically, I made a online edition save replay. I went into versus mode, 1 round. Both of us had supers. I jumped over. I did the combo. I uploaded it onto the replay browser on on OE, and the next day it had 2 downvotes, but because nobody knew what was, the people who ever happened to watch it didn't know what was going on. Um, uh, so I tried to make a Shoryuken uh, account, but I kept getting denied. I don't know if it was because of
Why?
my I don't know if it was because of my email or what, but I reached out, and it took I want to at least 2 or 3 days, maybe even more, to actually get the account activated. And then all I did was I went into the notepad and copy pasted everything from that I had written down all of my theories of why it might work,
Huh.
but why I can do it. And I posted it, and immediately it was like, "Oh, that's online edition only. Why does this work on online edition?" And then I think it was Fran 3S was the first other person. He loaded it into MAME and did it, and was like, "Nope, it works on MAME, so it's arcade possible." It was. It took like it took quite a bit longer before it finally actually was able to spread to Japan, thanks to Danka and Julian,
Mm-hmm.
who were happened to be in Japan. Julian's an Australian player, and Danka is from the U.S., but he was living in Japan at the time for school, I believe. And they were translating it. And I think Julian was the first to actually land it in Japan to actually show that it was possible. And
Mm-hmm.
Danka was helping translate my Sure You Can posts so that a player like Tominaga would be able to actually do it. But it still took a long time before like there was some mistranslating, something going on, because I never saw Tominaga once do heavy kick super as a test on Chun Li, not once.
Mm.
It's a bad idea from the left side because it changes her position. But if you do it from the right side, it's 100% reliable. It's 100% reliable. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the when I finally posted on Sure You Can, though, I felt like such a relief, because like hearing that it's impossible for so long
Mm-hmm.
and trying it on and off, like I gave up for quite a while after,
Mm-hmm.
like I started just actually playing the game and sometimes playing online, which
So exactly how long again? How long? How long?
almost from OE's date start point,
So
almost a year.
2011 to
It was August 2012.
2012.
So almost a year to the day
Yeah.
that OE was out.
Uh-huh.
When I actually had save states.
Uh-huh.
As soon as I had save
Yeah.
states, I could toy to my heart's content, because
Mm-hmm.
PS2
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
Like I can do it on PS2. Like now that I know what I'm doing, I do it
Uh-huh.
on PS2. But when I said that I did it on pad, people were like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, "I don't know. I've just been playing on pad for a while." And after like when I first started, my first experiences online were not super great experiences. I got double perfected by Rakurai, double perfected by Yuki, double perfected by Sandy Bags. I was just not good, like flat out. I was just not good, and nobody would have thought twice playing against a red Makoto or whatever. And then I posted the tech on Shoryuken, and then I started, you know, playing around with the game more, and eventually my friend helped me get a stick, and I got playing on a stick, and now that's all I play on. My pad skills have dropped considerably. I can't do it anymore.
So tell us a little bit about I don't know if anyone's aware of this, but tell us a little bit about those infamous streams of yours that Tominaga would actually watch.
Oh,
Like
I can't under I'm not 100% that he watched the actual streams itself.
or he watched the
I
VODs or
that's what I mean. Even the vods, I had to make timestamps and put them into Twitch chat when they were streaming GameSpot versus
uh-huh,
on Twitch, and then I
uh-huh,
did the same thing for YouTube,
uh-huh,
and I would do that like consistently for a while.
uh-huh.
Like always been out for considerable amount of time, and for a while I took like a year break from even playing the game. I went like played like competitive shooters for a while, but I when I started like paying attention to Third Strike again, and mostly GameSpot versus and monthlies and stuff like that, and of course I'd always watch the Co-op Cup or SBO, even way back when. I'd always try to tune in for that anyway. I got I got this like fire under my ass basically because I saw Tominaga doing the hard version every time, and to an extent he still does, and that kind of makes me sad. I'm trying to teach him the easy version, or the easier version in my opinion anyway, like the one that gives you the most frames leniency wise, but he seems like he's been doing it on and off now for since he started doing it about like 6 years or something. So he's pretty. I think he's pretty set in the way that he's doing it. But I think if he could actually see me do it and actually see how slow my inputs are, I don't need to like really do it very fast. He might try to, adopt my way of doing it. So,
So tell me a little bit more about like so Donka, and
yep.
and some other people are helping you translate, the tech, and
Oh yeah,
so
yeah.
like how was like like could you tell us a little bit about how like that stuff was circulated, or how well that stuff was received in Japan, like.
Um, I know I know Genki helped translate.
Mhm,
I One of the first people who even reached out to me because I made my Twitter account because of the Chun combo.
mhm,
Because I heard that there was Japanese players on Twitter, and that I thought, maybe Tominaga was one of them. I was mistaken because I thought the Tominaga bot was actually Tominaga, not him, obviously. Now, but anyway, she Ken player, um, or she, I think it's she. Anyway, um, he helped translate some stuff, as well as Danka, Julian, Genki, um, and there was quite a few people, and even now, like for certain tech, because there's now even more versions of the combo, including other characters. It's not just Chun Li that I'm trying to help with. It's other characters now too. Um, and people in the YouTube chat will help translate,
mhm,
and I'm eternally grateful to all of them because I do not know the first anything about Japanese, anything. Um, like I understand some basic words, but that's just from things I gathered from watching anime over the years. That's about
mhm,
it. Nothing, nothing remotely like I couldn't explain how to do anything.
mhm,
Um, and so I started just being like, okay, I see that a lot of Japanese players do notations with like numbers, like the numpad, be like 623 light punch is DP basically. And then so I started explaining like that, and now the thing is like Tominaga knows way more English now than he did when he was first being taught the combo, and so he can understand a lot of what I'm writing if I write the same phrases. Like if I write it, without if I write it like clearly enough, he can understand it. Um, but he's too humble. He goes like, "Oh, it's very difficult. It's very difficult," or "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm bad," or something like that. But um, oh yeah, we go telesniper sensei or shisho, and like um, and oh hello telesniper. Anyway,
mhm,
it was it's cool, but it, it's hard with even with how many people are helping with language barrier.
mhm.
Tominaga might be more just of a visual learner too.
Mhm.
Yeah, or he just
Yeah.
might be stubborn like me and need to learn it by himself,
Mhm.
kind of. But
And so
uh,
what kind of I don't know if you're in the lab right now, or but like what are some of the things that you're kind of, as far as the game wise, right?
uh
Like
huh.
what are some of the things that you're kind of labbing these days, or Or have you even been
So
labbing these days?
I have to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't played nearly as much since Defend the North, which, by the way, I was gonna, if it wasn't so hot here, I was gonna wear the Defend the North hoodie that I got there, but I had to stick with my Hadoken Park shirt.
It's a pretty godlike shirt.
It was a gift for my brother. Um,
Pretty godlike.
uh, Mostly Makoto stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
I still toy with like the whole cast.
Yeah.
Like there's
Like what, man? Give us like specifics, man. Come on, give me something
oh
specific, like Makoto
like
stuff,
Makoto stuff. Okay.
or whatever you're labbing, man. Makoto stuff.
Uh, Mostly actual like setups, not
Mm-hmm.
fully exact set plays or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But now that there's a lot of character like the majority of characters. The only character that doesn't have it is Chun Li. When they start their wake up,
Mm-hmm.
they have a standing hurt box. And if they try to down parry as well, they have a standing hurt box for a few frames as they down parry. Um, that allows for heavy punch to connect as Makoto. There's also a
Oh.
couple things specifically against uh, the twins that I recently found. A couple things I found against Urian, like I uh, posted the first actual full touch of death against Urian as Makoto, which is on my Twitter as well. Because
At telesniper. Oh.
yeah, telesniper. The normal touch of death doesn't work on Urian because he has the same amount of stun as a Shoto,
Mm-hmm.
but he has more health, so it doesn't work. This does work, which is nice, but it's just it's a bit harder than typical uh, than the typical double Fukiage, basically. But,
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about Defend the North, or like maybe no, not before Defend the North. Let's just talk about your very brief. Right,
um,
you're a rookie, right? A tournament rookie.
can I get a
Yeah.
drink first
Oh
before we
yeah,
move on to
yeah,
the
sure.
defend enough?
Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and just take a break right here. And then when
Thanks,
we
man.
come back, we're gonna go ahead and talk a little bit about some offline tournaments.
My first time on cab, yay!
Yes, that's right. So don't go anywhere, guys. More Mutant XPerience podcast
All
on
right.
the way. Welcome back, guys. We are here with more Mutant XPerience podcast, episode 44. Tonight, with me, I have none other than Makoto Pioneer, telesniper. We had just gotten done talking a little bit about some of your contributions to the Makoto Tech and Third Strike. And so we were just about to get into your burgeoning tournament career, telesniper. So, for those of you who are watching, some of you might be surprised to learn that telesniper is actually a tournament rookie. Um, Not only did you not enter your first tournament until 2019,
Hmm.
but you also had never played on an arcade perfect setup until that date too.
No, no.
And that's what really boggles my mind, that you were able to develop this incredible tech and you had never played 1 second of arcade perfect Earthstrike. It's I don't know if that's just me, but I mean that just right, that just boggles my mind. So what finally kind of got you to decide, hey man, maybe I should start maybe I should go to an offline event or something, or
Well,
uh
I looked into playing like a super gun for a while before going, like for at least a couple years,
mhm,
and I never got any good leads or anything that like seemed to pan out. Like nobody seemed super I guess super knowledgeable. I was probably just reaching out to the wrong people, but like I told people, everybody that I talked to anyway, I was like, hey, I got the funds to you know get a super gun set up. I got a CRT. Uh, just just help me out, and I'll you know uh, uh, I got the money basically, and nothing ever really panned out. So I started looking into other ways to get it as close to possible to online, as offline rather,
mhm,
on CPS3, which led me into Linux and Groovy MAME and trying just a bunch of different things. Like I got specific computer hardware uh, dedicated for Groovy MAME to try to play it as close to possible as to CPS3. And what I got was pretty close. It didn't have, like stage slowdown and things that would happen like Yang stuff, but it was pretty much as close as possible um, at the time, and that was Groovy MAME. You could actually play it at the correct frame rate and hertz on a CRT. So I was playing it on a CRT at 59.583,
wow.
and it felt different. It felt different. One of the first things I did was just target combo super as Ken, and was like, oh wow, this is actually what? Why did the like? Why am I doing it too fast? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
What shouldn't be that big of a difference, but it there was a feeling to it. There was a different feeling to it, and I tried spreading the word about Groovy MAME to some people that I played with and some people on SRK. Um, Most people were stuck with Shmup MAME or just FBA for like training mode and stuff like that. I was fine with Shmup MAME for streaming. I streamed a couple times with it, um, but it wasn't my preferred setup. It felt a little funky, I guess I would say, but it was fine. Like, um, but yeah, I wanted to play on real arcade hardware because the thing that was in the back of my mind was I used to live in California.
Mhm.
So like I was born here in South Dakota. I moved because I was a military brat to California and was there for years. And I never went to a dedicated like arcade.
Mm.
Um, and I just I didn't have much of a reason to. I didn't have friends who were into it. I we played on console. Um, but knowing that I could have gone to a few of the well-known arcades in California, kind of stuck with me. Going like, oh, man, I missed out. I really missed out. And so here, and you mentioned that you'd been throwing together the Jazzy circuit, and I was like, that sounds cool. That sounds really cool. Um, I got a couple recommendations from yourself and a few other Third Strike players to try to go to um, Brews and Battles in Denver before the finale. And I was like, it's in Denver. My brother actually lives in Denver. So I was like, that could work out. I could visit my brother. I could actually try to play on arcade for the first time. And I did. I got 2 days of playing arcade in total in Denver. And then 2 days of playing, well, sort of, I guess, in DTN because DTN was so packed. Actually, playing on the actual arcade machines was there was long lines or technical difficulties and stuff, so there wasn't a whole lot of Third Strike itself that I got to play on. Speaking of DTN, I know I already thanked him in person, but if Exodus hadn't have brought the super gun with the correct like stick setup and everything like that, I wouldn't have done as well. Like, like the super guns with the USB and like some people's sticks that they brought from home, I could not do anything on. I felt useless. I felt completely helpless. And then Exodus set up his super guns in the corner, and I got to play on that uh, several matches with various people. Sent Dirt Master, Nika KO, Exodus himself, a couple other people, and it helped so much for the actual tournament the next day. Like it really did. So I didn't make as much of a fool out of myself as I could have. Um, I'm not hearing you, Newton.
So tell us a little bit about Brews and Battles, like because that was your
Oh,
first offline tournament, right? So
oh yeah, Brews and Battles
what
is
were you thinking? Like,
awesome. Yeah, Brews and Battles was awesome. I was blown away about like just how clean and uniform everything was in that place. I was
mm,
like, there's so many arcade machines. There's Vampire Savior, Third Strike,
mhm,
Super Turbo, everything that I really wanted to play. And the staff was super friendly and helpful. Like one of the staff members, Ryan, who works there, uh, he plays Chun Li, and I
mhm.
think he entered the tournament too. But he played Chun Li, and it just so happened that I got to play my very first match against somebody on cab in Denver was against his Chun Li, and my very first attempt I got the double Fukiyage off on him,
Wow.
and he was just like, "What the." And Colin, aka Shotokan, was off to the side, and he's just like saw it happen.
Mhm.
There's a few other people uh, that were like just Third Strike heads that were like nice, and I was like, this feels so much better. This feels so much better. And I mean,
So like, how did
it
you know?
does.
Did you go in there and go, "Hey guys, I'm telesniper," or like, or like,
No,
how did
so
that happen? Like that
I
interaction.
when I went in there initially, I recognized two or three people. I recognized
Uh
Shotokan.
huh.
I recognized I can't remember the other two people I recognized. uh, and I was just like walking around a little bit, kind of like glancing around, watching them play some games, and they're like, "Oh hi," and I'm like, "Oh hi, nice to meet you." Shake hands. Oh, what do you go by? And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
telesniper. And one of the guys was like, "What? Really? Like I heard you were coming," like that
Uh-huh.
kind of thing. And I think everybody thought it was just gonna be, just a flake or something. Like I wasn't gonna come,
Uh-huh.
but I
But you
was like,
did.
I'm coming, damn it.
And you
I'm
did
actually
pretty
gonna.
well.
I did better than I thought I was going to, for sure.
Like
That's the
like what
thing.
was cuz okay, so this is your first offline tournament,
Uh,
telesniper. And so like did you have like expectations or did you just kind of went
none.
in there? Okay. So like tell me about do you remember what your first match was? I always remember my first match, but what's your
I want to say it was a Ryu player.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think so. Or no, it might have been a Ken. I think he might have sent me into losers immediately.
Uh-huh.
I think that might have been it, and I think he ended up making top 8.
Oh, okay.
But I got a red parry into double fukiage on him. I think,
Uh-huh.
if I'm remembering correctly, target combo. And anyway, um, I I did better than I thought I was going to do, for sure.
Uh-huh.
I didn't have any sort of expectations, but um, Colin Shotokan gave me some good advice. Was just like I came in that first day when getting and I thought that was the day of the tournament. I
Uh-huh.
had misread the thing and I thought that was the day of the tournament. Um, and so I was like, I'm trying to get in as many games before the actual like tournament starts at 7. And
Uh-huh.
he's like, oh, that's that's tomorrow. And I'm like, what? And he's like, oh yeah, this is just a getting loose sort of day. Like this is to get your bearings,
Mhm.
sort of thing. Um, but Brews and Battles was an awesome experience. Besides just playing on cab, I got to hang out with Colin. We got pizza. We got to hang out and talk. Just Third Strike Tech,
Uh-huh.
like a whole lot, way more than I've ever had in friends here. Like nobody plays the game, so
Mhm.
it was much more interesting and fun to actually share tech verbally rather than just through text and typing.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Did you get to play
uh,
Justin?
I did.
And
I
what was
actually
that
did.
like? Like
We
was that
played.
something that you were like was that something where you like I know you said you didn't come in there with any expectations,
No,
but
I didn't
was
play
that one of
Justin
those
in the tournament. I
uh-huh.
didn't play Justin in the tournament.
Uh-huh.
Thankfully, he would have obliterated me. I did play him in casuals afterwards. He was playing best of 5
Uh-huh.
on to pretty much anybody who wanted to, and I played him
Mhm.
and he beat me 3-2.
Mhm.
But I did hit double fukiage on him twice.
Mhm.
And after that happened, first off, I popped off. I was kind of a dick. I popped off. I jumped out the chair.
Did you have some spirits in you at that
No,
point?
no. I
No.
don't drink.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't drink. No.
Okay.
But other people around did,
Yeah,
and they
I'm
were
pretty sure they
and
were hyped.
some of them.
So there's no excuse why you popped off. You just popped off.
I just popped off
Okay.
because I landed it. I landed it twice
Uh-huh.
against Justin.
Yeah.
That was it.
No, okay.
So
I respect it.
what was it after so going back a little bit further, a while before Brews and Battles, I can't remember the exact date,
Uh-huh.
but I it might have been a year before or something like that. I figured out how to make the Chun Fukiage even a little bit easier. Um, very slightly easier. It adds like a frame or two of window, but it's still, it's something. Um, and I posted about it on SRK, on Twitter, and something else. And Justin responded to it saying like, "Oh, why is it always got to be against Chun, huh? Like, why has everybody got it out for Chun?" Um, SRK even did like a little article about it too, which was kind of neat. But it just made the combo a little bit easier. It's still not an easy combo, but um, when I landed against Justin in the casuals afterwards, I popped off because like I wasn't expecting I wasn't expecting to even get the opportunity to actually super him.
Mhm.
Like his spacing was so much better than any player I had played up to that point.
Mhm.
It was it was like I couldn't do much of anything. One thing to note though was I think I mentioned this to you before in previous chats, but dashing in the game, just you're forward for dashing, but you can dash with a quarter circle forward before, so you go quarter circle forward, neutral forward,
Mhm.
and you dash.
Mhm.
What you can do, especially it helps out Makoto because she has super fast dash, is if you do it right, you can be crouching. You can go to down forward, neutral forward, and you will dash without any visible uh, anything visible, like as a predict, like they can't see it and predict you're gonna dash.
Mhm.
You will just dash if you do it right.
Mhm.
And you can and I will note that I heard about Justin's reactions, and obviously I've witnessed them over the years from watching him in various games. So I tested his reactions after the tournament. He won the tournament at Brews and Battles, of course. Uh, Though it was a pretty good close grand finals, but he won, and he was uh, nice enough to play casuals with people afterwards. And I wanted to test his reactions.
Mhm.
He teched Makoto's throw after normal dash every single time,
Mhm.
every single time. Uh, but I crouch dashed, did the Hado dashing, so
Mhm.
crouching and then just dashed out of nowhere. I threw him 4 times after that.
Mhm.
4 times. He didn't tech a single time from those. But every time I did normal dash, he caught the little stutter step forward before the dash, and he knew it was coming. And so I was like, all right, all right, I tried. Hey Herb, I tried myself in training mode to tech Makoto's dash. I put the training dummy to do the crouch dashing,
Uh-huh.
and just save stated at a random time, so I don't know when it's coming. It's so hard to react to. It's so hard to react to because you have to react to your she's here like across the screen, and then bam in your face, and it's throwing you in like 13 frames.
I
Like,
have actual tournament experience of this. I
oh
remember in my
yeah,
match versus Neobon, he won a round against me, and the dash was so fast, man. And you're
yeah.
right. I believe he was crouching before the dash, and it was
It's
just,
so good. It's so good. The thing is, because of that though, it also keeps
yeah,
Makoto's hurt
yeah,
box low.
yeah.
So if you do it right, you don't even get the standing hurt box.
Uh-huh.
So you can crouch dash under um opponents jump ins better too. If you're used to it. So it's it's better in neutral. Like Tominaga it, is pretty much universally lauded for his dash throw game.
Uh-huh.
Even compared to like Mimura and other people who play Makoto and do boss and stuff, do dash throws, that Tominaga gets the most successful throws. And honestly, I think if he added this to this repertoire, I've never seen him crouch dash. He's always had that little stutter step
Uh-huh.
or something to buffer into the dash,
Uh-huh.
like a crouch medium punch buffers dash, that kind of thing. You have a little tell beforehand, and your opponent knows to expect something. But if you just crouch dash, they don't know what hit them.
Uh-huh.
Like they just don't know. So anyway, that's another thing that I want to get around to talking or teaching him.
So then you go to DTN. I know we talked a little bit about your experience in DTN, and
Hmm.
it's unfortunate, right, that all the things that are happening in this world are happening right now. But it is what it is, and
Hmm.
so hopefully one day we'll be able to resume the Jazzy circuit. But in the meantime, obviously telesniper, all we have really is online third strike, and
Yeah.
so let's begin by talking a little bit about just kind of how you started getting interested in sort of the I guess what we could call the technical aspects of porting third strike, because I know that's something that you've been following for a while now, and so how did that sort of come about, your interest in that?
It importing and
Like
porting.
just
What do you?
in just like just kind of sort of like looking at ports of third strike and kind of
Oh,
sort of.
okay, okay. So I was immediately interested once I heard about Groovy Mame
Uh-huh.
for, and I know that's not a port; it's an emulation. But I w- heard Groovy Mame could potentially recreate the game as close to Arcade Perfect as a computer could do. So I got really into that, and at the time, the easiest way of doing it was through Linux, and it was only my second, I think, experience ever doing anything with Linux, and so it was like a whole, like just a whole bunch of what seemed like gibberish. And at the time, the actual Linux version, the Linux build of Groovy Mame is not a very user friendly build, in my opinion. There's a lot more modern Linux builds that will represent or reflect what users are used to for Windows and how easy Windows is to use. There's a lot of Linux builds now that are as easy to use as Windows. It and they're much smaller. They use less CPU resources and stuff. So I thought that would be a good starting point for for like actually learning how to play the game offline. um, and it was for a while. I played Groovy Mame for a good while, but since all my friends still played OE, uh, I I drifted back to it, and then eventually 30th came out, and I got into looking into 30th. And honestly, when 30th came out, it was, I got it day zero the night before on Xbox One, and I don't know how easy it is to tell over here, but I have all three versions of the game with Xbox One in last place there, even behind Switch. Uh, it's not good. It's not good. Uh, but on Steam, it was pretty decent. I actually like playing it for a good long while, but the problem was input consistency. There was something wrong with it.
Hmm.
Something with diagonals, especially, just did not ever sit well with me.
Specifically on Steam.
On Steam, yeah.
And when did
The
you first recognize this problem?
Almost immediately.
Okay.
It was when I was doing either instant uh, um, EX Sarugi as Makoto, like do a neutral super jump,
Uh-huh.
quarter circle back, and two kicks. And so often it wouldn't work, even if the even in training mode, even if you could see it on the input display, it wouldn't actually
Register.
work exactly. um, and so I was like, this doesn't make any sense now. uh, like, I got my stick next to me. um,
Let's see that bad boy. Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
it's got a pretty new faceplate on it too, so
Okay.
it's
Well,
nice.
hold on. So hold it up. Hold it up. Okay. See the bling.
Ooh.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, there we go.
I like.
Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so so this was a eight button panel, and I like the usability because I don't have any holes drilled out for like side buttons. I plan on doing that soon, but I took the plungers out of these buttons, so I
Uh-huh.
can still use them by putting my finger in the hole. But if I'm mashing out of stun, I
Uh-huh.
can't hit it. I can't hit those buttons. So
The
that's why I did
tech.
that. Yeah. Um, but it's got a Brooks UFB and a retro board in here. It's dual modded,
Uh-huh.
and it's got the Nutrix port out for the Ether, the RJ45 cable.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, fitting all that into it was the interesting story. But uh, anyway, so I tested on Steam with all the different modes because if you plug the stick in while you're holding a given button,
Uh-huh.
it actually starts as a different mode for the stick. So like if you plug it into Windows 7 and you don't press any buttons, it auto detects, I believe, as just a 360 controller. And it's like, okay, that's pretty fine. It's pretty universally accepted.
Uh-huh.
If you hold a different button, you can force it into Xbox One mode or Wii U mode, like the Pokken controller. You can force it into PS3 or PS4 mode. And the thing is, from the tests that other people have done, and I only had feelings of this, was that the PS4 and PS3 modes were the fastest. They were the most consistently reliable modes. Um, and it wasn't just down to the Xbox One actual system was slower. It's this particular version of the firmware on the actual PCB was slower in a given mode because it was optimized for that system, because that system might only respond to inputs at a given polling interval or something like that. Well, the PS4 and the PS3 um, respond pretty fast. And so I started trying out other different modes on Steam, and I had better reliability with PS4 mode at first on Steam, but it still wasn't good enough. It wasn't close to OE. It wasn't even remotely close to OE as far as input reliability.
Uh-huh.
Um, and by the way, when I talk about OE, I'm talking about PS3 OE because PS3 OE has slightly less input lag than the 360 version. And if you set it up right through the component outs, you can get a almost 99% never drops audio version as well. So
Oh, wow.
it it's pretty good. I mean, you still have the quote unquote trash can Shoryus and 12's voice is still wrong and all that stuff, and some scaling issues here and there. But as far as reflective of offline, the thing that so I can't grab it right now, but it's over there. I have a open source scan converter that can convert component or VGA or SCART in to an HDMI out.
Uh-huh.
A lot of people even they set it up for CPS2, even some CPS3 setups. And OSSC is great. The PS3 version of OE though, the hertz rate that the OSSC gets isn't normal NTSC. It's not 5994. That's what comes out of the 360. Uh, PS3 comes out and registers as 59.82 for some reason. And anyway, it's closer to the 59583 that actual CPS3 hardware is. Um, yeah, Rakurai, OSSC's godlike. Um, I also have a Garo transcoder and a RetroTink 2X Pro. And speaking of converter things, I do finally have the cable, and because of the retro board in this, I can actually have the Super Nintendo out to actually try the Mutant XP challenge eventually.
Actually, we need to be very. We need to. I need to clarify the rules. All right, telesniper. The
Okay.
mutant challenge can only be done on a SNES controller. Okay.
SNES. Okay, that's fine. I have
Yes.
one of those. I have one of those.
All
That's
right.
that's fine.
For those of
That's
you who
fine.
don't know what the Mutant Challenge is, I know this is a Third Strike podcast, but basically the Mutant Challenge is to beat Street Fighter 2 Hyper Fighting on the SNES, max stars, max difficulty without losing a single round.
Okay.
Shout outs to Haas and everyone else trying out the Mutant Challenge. But it must
Okay.
be done on a pad. It cannot be done
Okay.
on a stick.
I could have started trying a while back then because I
Okay,
had
good.
the video cable for it.
All
So
right.
that's yeah.
But yeah.
Thanks, Herb.
Yeah, I
Um,
expect Telesniper to beat the challenge with every character within a week. So it's
within a week, I might have to take a week off from work, but let's see. Um, every character that's going to be a challenge because I think I barely know how to play half the cast on
definitely.
on the game. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I have the original cart, the
Yeah.
system.
So let's talk a little bit about like just the current landscape of online Third
Okay.
Strike because I don't think there's ever been a point in the history of the game where there just are just literally dozens of different ways to play this game online. I mean, it's the options are now just mind boggling. There's just so
Yeah.
many ways to play this game, and so how do we, how as someone who has, again, followed sort of the the kind of history of Third Strike ports and have primarily played online and obviously experimented with different emulators and stuff.
Yeah.
How would you kind of assess the current landscape of online Third Strike, just kind of from a technical standpoint?
Uh, Fightcade 2 is magic. It's
Okay.
as close to magic as we can get. Um,
Now, when you say words like magic, right? Obviously, that's very
yeah,
subjective, right?
it's
So, like, what
yeah.
exactly is what exactly do you feel is the thing that makes a Fight K2 head and shoulders above the rest in terms
So,
of online
so
ports?
it has further refined GGPO netcode.
Uh-huh.
It's not. I mean, it doesn't. It's not like it doesn't have any kinks to work out. It's still in
Uh-huh.
beta. But as far as what we got on online edition, and I can go back to this point, but online edition had GGPO,
Uh-huh.
and it was pretty good.
Uh-huh.
But the problem was the actual network card on the 360 and how they programmed it for the game. It just couldn't send updates as frequently as it needed to.
Hmm.
It wasn't programmed to do such. And it I don't know if it was because there's the different 360 versions. There's the old original like white console, then there was the Xbox 360 Elite, then
Hmm.
there was the Slim, then there was the one that didn't even come with like a hard drive or whatever at the time
Uh-huh.
and was mostly digital only or whatever. It it's hard to say when I played the original. Once I played OE, I couldn't play like online for a good while. I could not play online. I mean, Fightcade 1 anymore.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't do it. I found out at least for whatever reason, and it could just be. But we did multiple tests anyways. My friend in the Netherlands and I found out on 360 OE at least we had considerable less rollback and lag spikes if we only played on Elena stage. Only Elena's. And somebody told me, and exactly, I know that's not ideal because bees in my head. Anyway, um, and the whole like I was playing on the CRT that I was playing on at the time had this really terrible redshift, so the screen was so bright and obnoxious, but it was still more fun to play with my friend in the Netherlands on Elena stage than some people in America on any other given stage.
Uh-huh.
So when I actually played a Japanese player, a very strong Chun Li player from Japan, on Elena stage. I said, sorry, Elena stage only, please. So we only played Elena stage, and it was actually really good. I was really surprised, and I got a nice message afterwards saying it was like, oh. very strong player. Thank you for play or something like that. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, how does
So
Elena stage make it?
what is it about Elena stage then?
Well, I I uh I didn't have any exact theories, but I posted about this before, and somebody theorized that it was because Elena stage is the shortest, and that might have something to do with it.
Maybe.
But exactly that, I don't know
Well,
if it
technically, I
had.
think Gil stage is the shortest, right? But
Oh, it would be really
I think
okay.
Gil stage is the shortest. I have
See,
to double
I
check
know a
that.
lot of Japanese online play that I saw was on Kill Stage.
Hmm.
Um, so that could be.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
never thought of
um,
that.
I like the whole like really long. I know they were playing online, but the Kuroda and Hayao Oro versus Hugo
Hmm.
huge long stream was like entirely on Gil stage. But I will
Hmm.
say that anytime I played on Gil stage, it didn't seem to really help. At least really long distances, Elena stage felt the best to me personally, and my friend in the Netherlands agreed. But he doesn't have a lot of Street Fighter experience. Like he played Third Strike with me and some Street Fighter 4, and
Hmm.
that's pretty much it.
Hmm.
Um,
What else?
uh,
What else about the new Fightcade build do you think?
so
Does what are some of the other things that you think it does well?
So one of the cool things that they introduced is the ability to do run ahead mode.
Uh huh.
And if you didn't know what run ahead is, if anybody is unaware of it, um, there's an emulator called RetroArch or Arc. I can never remember which one it is. That introduced run ahead mode. And correct me if I'm wrong. There might have been something else that did it beforehand, but RetroArch was the first one that I was aware of that did run ahead mode for emulation, where you could take a given native lag that was in programmed into the game and remove it by running a separate instance of the game X amount of frames faster than where you currently were. And then as you would press an input, it would do a load state of that frame. It would constantly be doing save state, load state in the background. What you would see was essentially your input 3 frames in the future, like if you put your run ahead to 3, for instance, on a game. A notorious example is Mortal Kombat on Genesis or Super Nintendo,
Hmm.
and the Super Nintendo one had like 2 or 3 extra frames of lag natively than Genesis did.
Yeah.
So you could actually make Super Nintendo identical to Genesis, but with the improved like colors and visuals of the Super Nintendo comparatively in the versions. You could make it as responsive as the Genesis version with run ahead mode,
Huh.
if you wanted to. You could actually make it better than native hardware.
So why is that?
Um,
So why is that native lag programmed into?
it might just be oversight. I'm sure that there was 2 different teams working on it.
Uh,
It also could be that they didn't understand the actual pipeline for how uh, inputs get registered or how late into a given frame inputs need to happen to
uh,
actually feel more responsive. Because if you pull inputs at the beginning of the frame, it has the entire rest of the frame to go and then the next frame before it actually registers that input. But if you pull for inputs at the bottom of the frame, then the input that you actually see, the frame that you actually see your input is going to appear sooner,
okay.
and it will feel more responsive. So actually, RetroArch even has that as an option: late polling, early polling, or neutral polling
Hmm.
for where it pulls for inputs, which is kind of neat. Um, but with with Fightcade 2 specifically, they added run ahead mode, and internally um, internally, Third Strike has effectively 2 frames of native lag. It has a frame that apparently is a sprite buffer, a like sprite cache buffer, and then it also has a frame where it processes your input, where the game receives your input and then it responds after that. It doesn't respond on that given frame. So what we were always experiencing with Fightcade 1 or other versions of the game, it was it was further from actual arcade than we might have realized. Even through testing and stuff, when people say they feel something's different, usually a single frame isn't as much of a difference. But in this case, because of the slower scan rate of actual CPS3 versus uh, like OE or 30th on Steam, which I'll say on 30th on Steam doesn't refresh at exactly 60. It has an internal DirectX polling thing in it that's DirectX and OpenGL, and it goes around 59.6/59.7, which is one of the reasons why the game feels slightly slower than OE. If you notice that, it's because internally inputs are registered almost as close to arcade as you can get. Um, but Fightcade 2 is right now, for my money, the best online experience you can do. It's still in beta. They still have some kinks to work out, some issues that they need to do. Some versions, it might be a better there might be a better version specifically for higher ping players. Like if you're playing somebody that's 100 or 120 plus milliseconds,
Mm.
you might have a version that would be better for your play, and then there's versions that would be much better for closer to local, like 60 milliseconds or under.
Mhm.
um, but the inclusion of run ahead, and from my testing, and I've tested with 3 different players,
Mhm.
testing frame by frame for given GGPO skip, like what you actually see get skipped. Um, Run ahead works as effectively a negative GGPO smoothing, but it's only like GGPO smoothing, for anybody who doesn't know, is effective extra lag that you give yourself so that you and your opponent get a slightly smoother experience.
Mhm.
So if you and your opponent experience 4 frames of given skip, if you put your smoothing at 2 and your opponent puts their smoothing at 2, you should have 0 skip, but you will have 2 frames worse input lag.
Mhm.
The So there's a slight downside to run ahead. Now there's no downside to it offline. If you're playing offline, run ahead 1 with the no sprite lag dip switch is pretty much as close as you're going to get to Third Strike arcade on modern like Windows and stuff.
Mhm.
I will say from my personal experience, when I got Linux set up for 30th, input consistency was through the roof for everything that I needed to do. Double fukiage, tackle headbutt, triple tackle headbutt, Yun Carapom, Yun Daipon loops, everything was so much better on Linux, and I can't stress that enough. I sound like a broken record at this point. I've said this to pretty much everybody, but the if there's a Fightcade 2 Linux build, which apparently they are working on, Linux has a better input handling like side of its operating system than Windows does.
Mhm.
Windows does not process inputs as the as a high priority thing. Like I had my Linux set up for high precision, low latency audio and for inputs. And let me tell you, I could do I could do some very good things. And the closest version to that level of input consistency was a Brooks Universal Fighting Board on PS3 OE.
Mhm.
That's the closest thing. And even that wasn't as close. The actual closest thing was actual arcade. When I got to play on arcade those 4 days, what I felt for consistency was what I felt on 30th on Steam
Yeah.
for Linux, but it was roughly about a frame laggier but it was a consistent amount of lag. It didn't vary, which is you can adapt to that versus variable lag, like some things have.
Mhm. Let's talk about some other ports. You said that you were a big fan of Steam before.
I
What were some of the things that
Where did my
kind
PS2 version go? I just had it. Where did
of
it go? Oh, did I put it down here? Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Um, PS2 actually gets a pretty bad rap.
yeah.
If it's set up properly with an OSSC or a RetroTink,
Uh-huh.
um, you can get lagless deinterlacing because the PS2 version uh, it was only 480i.
Uh-huh.
It didn't have a 240p or 480p version.
Mhm.
You couldn't force it like other games on PS2. So you had to do deinterlacing. And some CRTs, even though they display interlaced, you get additional lag because of it. Now there's devices out there like the OSSC and to some extent even or to a better extent rather the Retro 2X Pro,
Uh-huh.
or Retro Tink 2X Pro, excuse me, that can do lagless deinterlacing.
Mm.
And using that onto my VGA CRT, let me tell you, PS2 is pretty fucking good. It's
Oh
pretty
no, I
good.
I remember playing on
I
PS2
I was
for quite some time.
surprised. I was like, wait a second. I heard such bad things about this.
Well, I mean,
Like that's what
a
I
lot of that, a
heard.
lot of it is subjective.
It's yeah, exactly.
Well, not
So
certainly
um
sort of everything's subjective, but anyway. So let's talk about Steam because you had said that before, you were a big fan of Steam,
mhm.
and I
Oh, I
remember,
still play it.
yeah,
I
and you
still
still
play it
play it,
sometimes. Yeah.
yeah, and so tell us a little bit about the pros and cons of Steam playing Third Strike.
Pros are you're on a computer, you have a uh, quote unquote lobby system.
Uh-huh.
But uh, when it works, it is good.
Uh-huh.
When it works, it is good. Now
Now,
it
a
didn't.
few months ago, we in a private conversation, I had kind of told you something about. I had told you a story about a tree tracer, Texas Third Strike
Yep.
player, and he had a theory about sort of how or why Steam performs the way it does. And
Yeah.
so, basically, his theory was that when you're in a lobby, if everyone is spectating and everyone is playing in full screen and no one does anything. No one
That's the big
touches
point.
anything. Then it runs great. Like and
Yeah.
we had tested this. And so, Noe's theory is that the Steam version of the game
Yeah.
was originally a console version that was at some late point during the development turned into a Steam game. I mean, that's what the theory is. I mean, what do you think
Exactly.
about that?
So I think I agree wholeheartedly.
Uh-huh.
From what I gather, the emulation that's inside for 30th, it's not FBA. It's something entirely different. It's uh, oh man, it's is it called Moo Hijack or something like that? It's something else that
Hmm.
emulates the game at different. And I'll get to this in another thing a little bit in a second. But basically, it's emulated differently, and what's in it emulator wise is what you get in those arcade 1-up cabinets.
Hmm.
It's the same internals, like that's how 30th. So 30th was almost like the guinea pig before those arcade 1-up things
Oh
came
wow.
out. So excuse me. So I think if they actually gave it some tender love and care, that 30th could be the best version. You imagine if they could the sprite lag dip switch that I talked about earlier that Fightcade
Hmm.
removed. If that was in 30th, if that could be a remove, that would instantly give it a frame advantage
Hmm.
offline wise anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Now, their own netcode is different than GGPO, and in a fair bit of cases, it's worse.
Mm-hmm.
Fair bit of cases, it's worse. I had a couple better experiences with a friend of mine on 30th than I did Fightcade. And this is Fightcade 1, not Fightcade 2. I haven't played that same person on Fightcade 2, so I can't speak to that. But that was the standard back then. Fightcade 1, for some people, was even better than OE. And OE was, OE is what we got. Now, a lot of people give Iron Galaxy shit,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's completely undue and unjust. I think if Iron Galaxy actually had a hold of 30th, if they got to do 30th with what they gathered from, well, from from Vampire Resurrection for its GGPO is better than 360 OE's GGPO for Street Fighter 3. For third strike, they did update it a couple times and they tried to make it a little bit better, but they still couldn't. But if they had they Iron Galaxy, if they actually had the rights or the access to do 30th instead of Digital Eclipse, I think we would have got it a lot better,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest.
Oh.
Um, I think Iron Galaxy already had the knowledge, and Capcom at the time when OE came out, they didn't give them the hardware. They didn't give them the ROM to work with. They gave Digital Eclipse the actual ROM, like the actual
Mm-hmm.
source code to work with. Iron Galaxy had the Dreamcast slash PS2 port to work off of, and they made OE off of that, which is
They reverse engineered
they
something.
reverse engineered the ports, and then ported it themselves to PS3 and 360. That alone is amazing how close we got it at that point. Even then, there was like little bugs here and there, little things that were different, some scaling issues that don't only affect Yun but
Uh-huh.
mostly affect Yun, that kind of thing, where arcade purists are going to go, there's no substitute for Super Gun or an actual cabinet,
Uh-huh.
and I can't fault them for that. But what I will say is that from what I experienced with Linux 30th and what I could have imagined it being if Iron Galaxy got to use it, got a hold of it and actually was able to work with it. Like, say there's a uh, I don't know, a special another anniversary down the line.
Uh-huh.
I don't think
I'm
Iron
sure there will
Galaxy
be.
would. I'm sure there will be too. I mean, it's Capcom. They
Yeah.
they 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 love re-releasing games. Some of my favorite games, Devil May Cry series too, they get re-released. So anyway, they I don't know if Iron Galaxy would get the chance again, but I think on good faith, if I was Capcom, on good faith alone with how strong of a port they made OE, I would let them, I would give them a hold of the source code
Uh-huh.
to
Now,
let them go at it. And they also know a lot more about GGPO now, and they could, since GGPO is open source now, they have no excuse not to use the actual full GGPO
mhm.
and not the licensed version that they used back then, and they don't have to pay for it. It's open source.
Mhm.
So
And so, have you tried the community patch for Steam? It's a patch that
yes,
allows you to switch out
yes,
ROMs. There's
my
also been some talk and development about a possible online training mode for Third
yes.
Strike.
So I got extra excited because a friend of mine
Hmm.
and I again, uh, up front, I don't know jack anything about coding in comparison to my friend and other people online. Don't know anything. Like, I dip my toes in it sometimes, but um, looking through the patch, my friend and I eventually got around to making little sub patches for, like, bringing up the service menu for Third Strike. My friend found a way of injecting inputs into the game to get to the service menu for Third Strike, and changing values in that would actually reflect in game. Um, it's 30th could potentially be better if somebody could make a ROM, like a hard coded ROM,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't have the sprite lag that the current ROM that Digital Eclipse used and worked with, and they ran it through that uh, uh, basically reverse engineering emulation Mu hijack thing to actually get the ROM to work. I think it would be better than the current 30th
Mm-hmm.
for Third Strike
Mm-hmm.
specifically. I will say that what we played, because if you use the 30th patcher, you can play several different games online that you couldn't otherwise, and even games that aren't Street Fighter.
Mm-hmm.
You can play JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. You can play Vampire Savior online. My friend and I played Vampire Savior online, and we had a better time with that, to be honest, than when we played on Fightcade 2.
Hmm.
That was surprising. Uh, I don't know if it's because 30th does that whole it's actually slightly lower refresh rate internally, but you know, that could have something to do with it. I
Mm-hmm.
honestly think Fightcade's next step into being as close to arcade perfect for those games is a way of doing that sort of thing, where I mentioned RetroArch earlier, that that uh, if any of you have a FreeSync or a G-Sync screen, you can actually use RetroArch to display tear-free actual hertz rate on a given game.
Oh.
You can actually play Third Strike on RetroArch right now with Run Ahead 2. Run Ahead 1? Yeah, Run Ahead 1 or 2 with a G-Sync or FreeSync screen at 59.583393 or whatever it is, at that exact hertz rate, to be the exact speed that the game would be. Now you're not going to get the slight slowdowns you would with certain supers or specials like
Huh.
Yang stuff, but it's going to be closer than Fightcade 2 right now. It's going to be a better offline
Huh.
experience. It's it is on a LCD, and G Sync and FreeSync screens. Yes, they have more motion blur than a CRT, but here's a point of fact: if you have a good CRT, CRTs are capable of doing FreeSync. If you get a good CRT, you can actually set it up to do a 1 frame to point 0.5 to 1 frame variability in its syncing,
Huh.
and if your CRT is good for syncing, you can do FreeSync. You could do a FreeSync Third Strike at 59583 right now on Windows. It's possible, and that blows my mind. It just blows my mind. Now, is it as good as arcade? Probably not. Is it going to feel as good because you have this huge cab in front of you? Hell no. But but it's something. It's definitely something, and I think more people should look into it. I think a lot of people right now are I'm always looking for something to be better.
Huh.
Some people are stuck in the mud, or they're stagnant, or they're just good. They're happy with what they got already, and they don't want to find a way of improving it. That's fine. There's there's people out there that get by on that, and that's cool with them. I don't like settling for anything that I know can be improved,
Hmm.
or I'm stubborn like that. Besides the game tech stuff, like which I don't know. I want to say Fightcade 2 right now is as good of an online experience as you can expect, but offline it still has work.
So
That's
So how
port
about for
wise.
the console users, right? Because of course
Yeah.
not everyone is a PC gamer. Not everyone sort of is familiar with setting up their computer and stuff like that.
Yep.
We got some console gamers out there. I mean, obviously PS4. I mean, what are your thoughts on the PS4 port?
Uh, let's say it could be better. PS4. Are you talking like specifically Third Strike or just
Yeah,
in
Third
general?
Strike.
First up, okay, okay. Third Strike. That's why I
Yeah.
assumed. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, Third Strike PS4 is the best console version you could do, but
Wow.
I'll say
Over 360 and PS3.
no, no, no. So 30th.
Oh, 30th.
Sorry,
Okay.
I must have said Third Strike. 30th,
Yeah.
specifically. No, no,
Uh-huh.
no. If you're playing offline, I wholly believe PS3 is the way to go. If you have a Brooks Universal Fighting Board,
Uh-huh.
it is as close. It's closer than 360. 360 is good because most people have a lot of Third Strike people that were really interested and they knew how good Third Strike on 360 is rather they got sticks that already had low latency. The problem is, despite their low latency, they have inconsistency on their PCB. Their PCB variable has variable polling, like it might get hung up when you do two buttons at the same time, or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Brook UFB has incredibly precise consistency as far as polling internally goes. Now, if your system can handle it, is another thing entirely. For PS4 30th, it's the best 30th console by far. Like I have them rated in back to front in the order that I like them. I haven't touched the Xbox One version in forever because it's so bad.
So what makes the
It
Xbox One version so bad in your opinion?
audio lag
Uh-huh.
and input lag.
Uh-huh.
So this is all still testing with a UFB, with the Brooks UFB. But I have a lagless HDMI to because PS4 and Xbox One only have HDMI out, which is, I mean, it's what can you do? Um, it's up to the developers to do that. They have to, or the manufacturers to do that. They have to, go after the people that most people have HDMI screens now.
Uh-huh.
But I have a lagless HDMI to VGA, HDMI to component uh, adapters, and I tested Xbox One at 1080p through VGA onto my VGA PC CRT, down to 720p and even 480p, which the Xbox One can do, and the same thing for PS4. My PS4 LCD that wasn't like it's a decent one. It's on the box to the left of me. The RL 2460 from BenQ. It's the one with the HDMI output, so you can
Uh-huh.
do head-to-head lagless. Um, I use that as comparative testing, so that has a fixed input, a fixed lag.
Uh-huh.
That HDMI that screen will always lag the same amount of like, was it like 6 to 8 milliseconds or whatever for its screen compared to a CRT. Now, clearly, it has still motion blur, and that's not 0 to 255 back to 0, so it's still laggier than a CRT, but the HDMI out on it has zero lag. So if you go to this monitor and then compare it to another monitor side by side,
Uh-huh.
you can get the standard deviation, the actual the how far out of sync each monitor is, and compare lag that way.
Uh-huh.
I did that with my CRTs and found that the CRTs still had less lag than this is quote unquote the best esports, 60 hertz screen you can get right now. And uh, compared to a laggier LCD, PS4 on the laggier LCD responded faster than Xbox One on CRT.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That's all I have to say about that. I'm pretty sure the Xbox One constantly stresses the GPU because
Mm-hmm.
from what I've heard, even if you play a game at a lower resolution, the Xbox One internally renders it at the highest resolution that it does and then downscales it to its output.
That sounds
So
really stupid, but
it does. It really does. It really sounds really, really stupid because it is stupid. Um, it's a bad mistake. Every game I have that's on both PS4 and Xbox One. I have Devil May Cry 5 on both consoles. I have Red Dead Redemption, Red Dead Redemption 2, rather, on both consoles. Every game that I have on both systems, PS4 has less input lag by a substantial amount.
yeah.
It's pretty significant.
Okay.
So,
So let's
so
talk.
yeah,
So let's talk about Switch. The Switch is
Switch.
kind of an interesting, So as
Yeah.
far as like obviously, so let's just talk about kind of how Switch sizes up as far as how it emulates the game and how the game runs. Like what's your experience
Um,
been with Switch?
so I've taken my Switch to work and
Uh-huh.
on breaks made videos with the Joy Cons.
Wow.
It's not that bad.
Uh-huh.
It could be worse, and this is on the Switch screen.
Uh-huh.
Now I have uh, uh,
So we're just talking
whatever
about
the
offline performance right now, right?
yes
Okay.
offline yes.
Okay.
I have a I need to test online, and I have an Ethernet adapter for the Switch too, but I haven't got around to playing anybody
Mm.
or felt really motivated to do so. But basically offline wise, I can plug the HDMI from the Switch into the same screen that I
Mm.
play on PS4, and the Switch version has slightly more input lag than the PS4, and
Okay.
the Brooks UFB works on Switch too.
Okay.
So I'm comparing the same stick uh, on the same screen and everything like that. Um, PS4 responds faster, but it still has audio lag. That's my biggest dislike
Uh-huh.
for it. Just there because of this desync. Now, if I mute the screen, it's PS4 has clearly the best experience. But
Uh-huh.
if I do a headphone jack out from the Switch, it sounds like it has less audio lag than the PS4,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
but it has worse input lags, which is the main thing.
Uh-huh.
I will say though that uh, I because of the Switch stand that I got, I can plug the USB and test handheld mode on Switch playing 30th
Uh-huh.
and on screen, and handheld mode actually holds up pretty well.
Wow.
That little screen on the Switch is not bad. It's not that bad.
Uh-huh.
I was really surprised. I thought it was going to be really laggy,
Uh-huh.
but I was I was kind of impressed.
Yeah.
The output on it is you can set it to 1080p on the output for HDMI, but um, most of the time I just do 720 because that's what a lot of the games support anyway.
Now, have you tried to play it online, Switch?
No, no, I haven't.
You haven't been
I
that brave,
again,
huh?
again, I pretty sure 90% or 95+% of players who would be playing it online would be playing wireless. The wireless on the Switch is just not that good.
Yeah.
Now, the I do have an Ethernet adapter, and I would be totally down for trying Ethernet with somebody who also has Ethernet.
Uh-huh.
But I'm it's the same net code as
Uh-huh.
PS4, which by the way I do have PS Plus now, so I can play PS4 online too.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I don't think either of them is going to hold a candle to Steam.
Yeah.
The network card on the PC is just way faster. It's
Uh-huh.
just
Yeah.
that's the thing,
Yeah. Definitely.
unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, like it's
Have
all
have
of the
you have you
versions
played
have.
Switch?
No, I haven't. But like the
No,
thing, but to me though, right? Like it just seems so cool to think about like that Third Strike is on all these platforms, right? Like
agreed.
like the fact that you could like say I mean I don't know, like I'm pretty old, right? So I don't know what kids do these days, but like maybe you're at a party and maybe you got your Switch on you and you could like just like you could like potentially just take out your Switch and just show this
Yeah,
person, "Hey, have you ever heard of this game, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike?" Like
yeah. No, exactly. Like,
and you could give them some sort of approximation of how the game feels, right? Like just in that brief, those
yeah,
that introductory moment.
yeah.
Like think about like handheld Third Strike, like that's pretty insane, you know.
No,
And then
no,
obviously
yeah,
for
I
the
like that.
console users, right? We got the PS4, and then CPU, you got the Fight K2. It just seems really cool that like Third Strike is on all these platforms. I don't know. I just feel like a lot too much is made about like, oh, which one is better? Oh, what why is it good? Why is it bad? I mean, obviously, right? We do want to keep pushing, right, telesniper. We do want to keep
Yeah.
trying for something better, but like
So,
like Third Strike's everywhere when you think about it, right? Like we haven't even talked about Red GGPO. Like I know some people play on there,
a Red GGPO.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I heard good things about it, but
uh,
then almost as soon as I heard about it, then Fight K2 came out,
yeah.
and I was like, I'm gonna try it on that first because I hear some setup issues. I mean, who knows? Maybe Red
Is it me
GGPO.
or maybe it's because of COVID and everything, but I feel like all these different projects are popping up now, right?
Oh,
Maybe
for sure.
maybe because people have more free
Absolutely.
time or
Exactly. So, the thing is, since yeah, it's got to be like that. I know that I have a few friends who code things for games,
Mhm,
and specifically, and they have more free time on their hands because they work from home right now,
mhm,
even still, and so they, during their breaks or whatever, they can work on their side projects
yeah.
more easily without having a boss,
Mhm,
over their shoulder, potentially looking at stuff. But you're talking about handheld Third Strike, and I was going to say that I don't have a PS Vita, but if you have a jailbroken PSP, you can play emulated Third Strike on a PSP. Just just as a little side note,
yeah.
you can do it, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
Um, I will say that at least on Twitter, there's uh, a young Urian player goes by Jandor,
Yeah, shout outs to
who
Jandor.
yeah yeah
He
yeah
celebrated his birthday yesterday,
yeah,
so happy
happy
belated
birthday,
birthday to
happy
Jandor.
belated birthday. He posted on Twitter that he was practicing on his stick in the car on the way to the arcade.
Yeah,
That was awesome. I
crazy.
was like, oh yeah, dude. Like that, like that's such a good way of doing it.
Yeah.
Like, what are you gonna like? What do Third Strike players have? Like, they don't have any like baseball. Baseball players are like swinging a weighted bat in a corner to get loose, and or throwing pitches at a net. Like,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
Third Strike players are like, I'm gonna go in completely loose, completely frozen, whatever, and then I'm gonna get on the machine and then bust out this fat combo. Like,
Yes.
it's, it's
Yes.
so uh,
Well,
that's a good game plan. He will go very far
yeah,
with
he will
that
go
with
very
that
far.
mentality. Yeah.
Yes. So, speaking of having the right mentality, I think now is a good time to. I tried to get the segue going, but now I think now is a good time to go ahead and unveil tonight's nominees for
Yes.
everyone's favorite online Third Strike segment. You know it, Telesniper.
Pack it up.
That's right. It's time to pack it up. And so, as far as mentality goes, maybe some of these nominees could rethink their mentalities. But I guess we'll go ahead and see. And so, for those of you who are new to the show, Pack It Up is a segment where I scour the internet for some of the more unique examples of Third Strike gameplay. And so this for this episode, I have chosen clips that have been uploaded this past week because I was just kind of curious, Telesniper. Because another thing that I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's a lot of Third Strike videos on YouTube lately. Like there are a ton of Third Strike videos. Like Third Strike is everywhere.
I'm glad.
Like, and I think one of the things about this COVID thing is because we're like at home. A lot of us are at home. Obviously, shout outs to all the essential workers. But I think a lot of people who are at home, like they have more time to kind of reflect, and then like a lot of us are realizing, wow, like Third Strike is like literally everywhere. It's like everywhere. Yeah. But anyway, I already forgot what I was saying. Oh yeah, talking about Jandor and Pack It Up and stuff like that. So anyway, there's been a lot of Third Strike videos lately, right? Like on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's just everyone uploading stuff, and that's crazy. So I had no problem finding clips this week. There was a lot of content to pick from. And so are you ready, Telesniper?
Absolutely.
Okay. And
so I'm looking forward to it all night.
So without further ado, guys, who cares about the actual podcast, right? I should just save myself time and just do Pack It Up. Who cares? No one wants to hear me speak or whatever. Well, obviously they want to hear you speak, but I mean, who knows?
Oh hell no! I've been rambling the entire time, man.
No. It's been great, man. It's been great. But let's go ahead and check out this episode's Pack It Up. You ready?
Absolutely.
All right. Pack it up. Again, shout outs to Dirt Master for the dope beat, the new theme for Pack It Up.
Ooh,
so nominee number 1, I must admit, Telesniper, I have done this on multiple occasions in the past. This Necro player, rather than do a reverse grab, decides to neutral grab.
Yep.
But it's not like that bad of an option. Kind of pushes you away, I guess. But definitely not the most optimal response for that. And speaking of suboptimal, when you miss the red parry, it's automatic Pack It Up. You know what I mean? And so
you don't even have to red parry. That last hit's a normal parry.
Yeah. Shout outs to Koenji, Farai, and all those guys. You know what's worse than missing the red parry? Sniper, not blocking at all. Just deciding to just kind of whiff buttons. I'm not really sure if this was a punish. It might have been. I don't think so.
I think he pressed another button.
Yeah. But not blocking is also not a good mentality.
That's not a block. Yeah.
Nominee number 4. This sometimes you gotta be solid, Telesniper. You just gotta. Sometimes you gotta pull a SF5 and take the throw. I guess.
Yeah. I mean, Hugo as the grappler is like, I got this.
Yeah. I think it's because he got hit with Shoryu the first time. If you hit someone with Shoryu the first time, they're going to want to grab. But is there such a thing, though, Telesniper, as being too solid? Watch as this Makoto player has this Ryu player dead to rights.
Oh, no. This looks like one of my matches.
Oh, no. What's
going to happen, like one of my matches.
Look at that meter, Telesniper. 2 meters.
No.
Oh, no.
Throw.
Oh no! Is he gonna do it? Is he gonna do it?
Oh
my god!
Oh man, that kind of reminded me of my match against Daisuke.
Yeah.
Oh man, I have to say 2 or 5. I can't pick between 2 or 5. It's always painful when you miss that last parry because you're like, oh, I can kill with this combo. Ibuki would have done stand medium kick into Raida, and then it would have killed. But a Makoto player, I feel that. I feel that on a spiritual level.
Yeah.
Really personal.
That was rough.
Oof.
Yeah, I like number 5 too. If anything, because of the fact that she was fully stocked, and so you really have no. I mean, do something. I bet the Makoto player dropped EX Hayate there at the end, and then was like, I don't know what to do. Right.
Besides die.
So we're coming towards the end of the podcast, Telesniper. Thank you so much again for spending some time this Sunday evening talking to me about some of the more technical aspects of Third Strike. I don't want to ignore some of the comments in the chat, but I think about a half an hour ago or more, KO Fiend had made a comment about input devices, more specifically
Oh, Kale.
controllers.
I didn't happen to see
Um,
Kale Fiend in there.
and so, maybe before we end the podcast, what are your thoughts on, in terms of controllers and input devices and what are some of the best ones that I think, that people should consider using for Third Strike?
So, I'm gonna quickly look up the Twitter account. In the meantime, I will say that the Brook rather, yeah, that guy. The sorry, the Brook UFB is the best consumer uh, device out there for fighting games.
Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic. You can go to several different sites. If you're in the US, you can go to Focus Attack or Arcade Shock. I shop there very frequently. Like I have some relics behind me
Mm-hmm.
of my first JLF and my first LS32, um, that I figured, might as well have behind me than a white wall. But you can go to their store or their site and get a basically everything you need in one easy to use kit. You wire up the stick, you wire the buttons to it, you put the PCB with sticky feet somewhere in your enclosure for your arcade stick,
Mm-hmm.
and it does the rest for you. If you plug it into a PS4, PS3, you can get an adapter for the PS2, Xbox 360, pretty much whatever you can imagine. The Brook UFB will automatically detect, and you can detect what system you're on and play accordingly. If you're on PC, I highly recommend using PS3 or PS4 mode.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to use one of the other modes, or if you currently have a stick and you don't have the funds for a UFB mode, look into overclocking your USB port. I just walked Shotokan through how to do this yesterday, I think, literally. He thought he had done the overclocking. I don't know if you'd heard about. Have you ever heard about that, Anthony?
The overclocking of the Brooks board, the
UFB US. Sorry, I must have said USB port
no
for
no
your
no
PC.
no no.
So a lot of sticks, if you have just a normal 360 controller or 360 stick,
Oh, you're talking
even
about
like a
polling. You're talking about the USB
yes,
polling rates. Okay.
polling rate, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So
Yeah.
the thing that kills inputs is
Mm-hmm.
variability in your polling.
Okay.
If your PCB can handle it, you can overclock your USB polling to 2 milliseconds or even 1 millisecond.
Mm-hmm.
The Brooks UFB can handle 1 millisecond, no problem. I've run into a couple
And it doesn't
old
matter what
sticks.
if it's a USB 2.0 or USB 3.0. It doesn't.
No, they can work on 3.0 now
Mm-hmm.
just fine.
Mm-hmm.
People sometimes recommend 2.0,
Mm-hmm.
but I only ever overclocked on 2.0 on Windows 7
Mm-hmm.
with an old motherboard,
Mm-hmm.
and I just recently overclocked on 3.0 on Windows 10, but I also still use 2.0 just fine as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a really simple process. There's a GitHub page that has an easy download, an easy README setup walkthrough to do it on Windows 7 or 10 or XP or even Windows 8 if you want to. But uh, you can try your polling rate higher. Old versions of the software or the wouldn't always work with controllers.
Mm-hmm.
It mainly worked with mice and keyboards. That's
Mm-hmm.
it. The thing was, even on old, and I tested this on the old versions, you could overclock. I could overclock the UFB in PS3 and PS4 modes, but I couldn't on Xbox 360, Xbox One, or any of the other modes. I couldn't do it for some reason. On the newest version, you can. I can overclock it. I can put it in 360 mode, Xbox One. It will show you what the current polling rate is, and The what it shows for 360 is its polling rate is at B interval 2 dash to 64. It has variable polling. It doesn't constantly poll. It sometimes will just drop, inputs. It might have 3 frames of latency one time. It might have 4 and a half the next time. Windows is PC in general is kind of awful for consistent inputs. You need like a server based PC with dedicated hardware with constant perfect polling rates to keep everything,
Mm.
centered. But in the meantime, you can use something like this to overclock your USB port to more reliably get moves out.
Mm-hmm.
I showed Shotokan how to do this, and he instantly went into training mode or against, versus whatever in on Fightcade 2 and busted out a couple Carapalms and Daipon loops, and he's like, "This feels better. This feels more consistent."
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, if you don't take my word for it, you can take Colin's word for it. Uh, I firmly believe that USB overclocking, if you have a 360 only stick, can help. You might not get the you might need to tweak it to be 500 hertz polling rate, which is every 2 milliseconds, or 1000, which is every 1 millisecond. By default, it's very likely at 125, which is every 8 milliseconds,
Mm-hmm.
which means you might get a variable input lag of additional up to 8 milliseconds of lag for no reason, which can cause you to miss a Kara or miss an EX input. It's that kind of thing. I recommend everybody try it if they can, if they're on PC, that is. If you're on console only, if you're doing OE or on 360 or PS3, I highly recommend the UFB anyway, because it's the best consumer device that you can easily put in and plug in, and it works. It's made for arcade sticks.
Mm-hmm.
There are very few devices that, if I copy this guy's name right, um, I will put this in the Twitch chat really quick.
Great.
If uh, there's very few devices that will pull faster than than the UFB with any remote amount of consistency. So this guy, awesome dude, uh, has been doing massive amounts of latency tests for various USB devices and even old controllers like Saturn controller. If you have a Saturn controller is amazing. It is
I like the
amazing.
Saturn controller as well.
Dude, it is so highly precise, precision wise. I tested it. I have a Saturn that has a Fenrir ODE in it, and I have Vampire Savior. I got the Saturn 99% to just play Vampire Savior,
Mm-hmm.
and I tested it. The UFB and the Saturn controller are like neck and neck. It's crazy. I was like, oh my god,
Wow.
this is amazing. So that's the guy's Twitter account, and if I go to looking at the input lag database, he has a huge spreadsheet for it. Uh, what? Where's the page? Um, you can search it from that guy's um, Twitter account. However, if you want to, it goes by Pork Chop Express slash at Mr. Add-ons.
Mm-hmm.
He's the developer for Mister, and which is an FPGA based emulation where you can play Genesis, Super Nintendo, old Atari games, some CPS games. Like I wish it was powerful enough for CPS 3, but I don't know if it is.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but he's going through and diligently testing how frequent and the deviation for polling on a given USB device or whatever the actual plug is, and he's found that the Brook UFB is in the top like 7 or 8 of everything, and it's so close in numbers. It's like fractions of a millisecond of difference. So Brook UFB is like 95 to 96% consistent, and the closest thing that's any higher is like 0.2% higher consistency wise. So the UFB is the best bang for your buck. You pay if you already have a stick enclosure, it obviously it's the best. You can go to one of those sites that I talked about earlier, Arcade Shock, Focus Attack, whatever arcade you
Paradise
might
Arcade
use.
Shop. Shout outs to
Paradise,
Paradise Arcade Shop, one of our official
oh man,
sponsors, Paradise Arcade.
If Paradise Arcade is fantastic. I loved ordering from them. I ordered a couple um, uh, uh, crown sticks
Mm-hmm.
and things that were from them, and even some LS32s and stuff too. And the last time I ordered from them, the last two times rather, I ordered from them, I didn't get any of the Hawaiian candy.
Uh oh. Uh
They
oh.
didn't put any candy in the box for
Someone
me.
stopped this man from writing a
So
real Yelp review.
no, I'm fine with it. They might have changed their procedure. They might not have wanted to do it anymore, but I miss that candy. If they Paradise Arcade Shop
I don't
starts
know.
handing out candy,
During this current
I
climate, you can
know, I
keep your
know.
candy to yourself if you're gonna ship me something. That's all I'm saying.
No, they're fantastic. They made analog a programmable analog stick
Uh-huh.
for your stick, so you can choose. It's I think it's optical or technically analog, where you can choose your throw and your actuation points. So you could mimic an LS32 and then plug it into your PC and program it to then mimic a JLF, and then I think that's fantastic. I think
Uh,
that's amazing. Um,
so,
uh,
I guess to kind of close out the podcast, I wanted to
mhm,
kind of ask you, kind of like to me, for every Third Strike player, it's a journey. For some people, the journey is long. For others, the journey is short. This is a game that has been in your life for quite some time, telesniper. And so, what do you kind of see the future? What does the future hold for telesniper
for
with
me,
regards to Third Strike? I mean, what are some
uh,
things? I mean, do you have any things that you would like to do still? Like I always say, have you been to Japan? Do you want to go to Co-op Cup? Do you have any kind of those
ideal
aspirations?
ideally, I had time off from work
Mm-hmm.
saved up,
Mm-hmm.
and I would have been in Japan in May for Co-op Cup.
Yeah.
Um, I had requested 3 weeks for at least 3 weeks in May to be off, and then I had to tell him to cancel that because
Yeah.
COVID stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, I haven't been to Japan yet. I want to go to Japan as soon as it is safe to do so, and I don't get quarantine punished when I come back to the states. That's pretty much it. Like I know so many other countries are slowly reopening or doing things that are within reason at wherever they are, and some arcade places in Japan are accepting people in, but it's still like taboo here because businesses want to keep customers and stuff safe, unfortunately. So traveling out of country and then coming back, my job would have me quarantined for a minimum of 2 weeks, despite the risk of infection in any other country being so much lower than if I just traveled to the city next to mine.
Mm-hmm. If
So
anything, the foreign country that you're traveling to should put you in quarantine
exactly, exactly.
considering what's going on right now.
I absolutely agree. And if they
Yeah,
did that, but yeah, that would suck.
yeah.
But I mean, I'd be like, hey, I got to spend an extra 2 weeks in Japan,
There has to be some
maybe.
sort of wealthy entrepreneur slash sort of philanthropist that is willing to give us money to so that we can buy our own Third Strike Island.
So I would love to get an actual board and an actual cabinet like setup.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple CRTs that would
These
work just
boards,
fine.
man. I tried to warn everyone.
That's the thing.
I tried to
Like
warn everyone.
I know there's dark soft mods and stuff for other boards, so you don't necessarily have to have a native Third Strike board, but still, like that's that's end game for me. I would love to visit Japan. Hell, I would sort of even love to live in Japan if I
Uh-huh.
could. But it's more like third strike wise for me. It's
Uh-huh.
it's more going to be just playing from home for a while. Ideally, I mentioned the Mister thing with the FPGA.
Uh-huh.
Ideally, an FPGA would come out in the future that was programmable to mimic cycle accurate CPS3.
Wow.
That would be the easiest. If it
Mm-hmm.
was affordable, it
Mm-hmm.
would be likely cheaper than getting an actual third strike board. But you
Mm-hmm.
could program it like as easier than a Raspberry Pi to output to a CRT,
Mm-hmm.
and that would be pretty much endgame for the vast majority of people.
So Herb Durkin asks, if all the CPS3 die, will 3S survive? I mean, it will.
Uh,
It will be in a
yes,
different form,
yes.
but it will survive, I think.
Um, so what I would say is that if you saw there's RB, which fantastic Urian player, um, practices on PS3 OE. I think honestly, with Japan's internet infrastructure, they could still play on OE and notice very little differences, and then play offline if they really wanted to. But like I said, a Brook UFB on PS3 is as close as I've seen. Now, I don't know if there's a way of like hard modding a PS3 to slightly slow down
Mm-hmm.
so that it would output at the correct hertz and respond differently. But PS3 was notoriously hard to work with for just developing games, let alone modding the hardware. So
Yeah.
I
All
don't
right.
think it would die. I don't think it would die
I
though.
don't think it's gonna die. I mean, it will evolve when necessary, like any other scene. As
For
long as
sure.
there's still people who want to play it. The Telesniper, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. It was well overdue. You did not disappoint, taking us down a trip down memory lane, talking a little bit about some technical aspects of the game. And so hopefully this current situation will clear up at some point, and we will all have another opportunity to meet and play Third Strike the way it was meant to be. Um,
Yeah.
and so before we get out of here, though, I did want to mention something. And so last week we announced that on Tuesday, August 25th, Vankabot will be streaming a special Jazzy retrospective show. I don't know if you heard about this.
That
Um,
sounds amazing.
but basically, on that show, we're going to be revealing the top Jazzy Third Strike matches of all time. And I'm just trying to kind of bring up my Twitter account here. Or the Jazzy Twitter account, excuse me. And so we're gonna go ahead and take a look at this here real quick. All right. So as I was saying, this past week we announced the Jazzy Circuit retrospective. It's going to air live on twitch.tv/Vankabot. Shoutouts to Vankabot, the hardest working Third Strike streamer around.
Absolutely.
And so he will be streaming the Jazzy retrospective. I'll be there. A bunch of other people will be there. Maybe some special guests. Who knows? We'll see. And so basically, what we're going to do at the retrospective is reveal the top 8 greatest Jazzy circuit matches of all time.
Ooh.
And to kind of help us decide what those matches are going to be, we are running a special Jazzy Circuit retrospective tournament, quote unquote tournament, Telesniper. And guess
Hmm.
which Makoto player from South Dakota made it on the 32 match list?
What?
Yes, that's right.
What? What?
Yes, one Telesniper is included in the field of 32. His match with Dylin at Defend the North.
Oh yeah.
I like how you read the match and then you're like, oh yeah, that's right. Put
Oh,
respect on
so
that.
it's the second match, not the match where he like threw where he kicked me into losers. Gotcha.
No,
Where I dropped the combo.
yeah. So you'll get an opportunity to vote for Telesniper's match. And so all you got to do is go to our bracket, which is challenge.com/Jazzy Retro 2020. And we have links to all of the matches. And so you can watch the match and decide who you want to advance. And so basically, week one voting is about to end tomorrow. And so this week, there's still time though. You still have some time to vote. You have until the end of tomorrow to vote for the week one matches. And so we got Ahmed and Daisuke from Next Level versus Yogurt Brain versus Antonio 3S from the Candy Cave. KG Legend versus Ken Black at ECT 2019 versus Rennick versus Too Tall at a Legacy Arizona Jazzy ranking event.
Rennick
Shotokan,
matches are always hype.
yeah, Shotokan versus Chris G at Frosty Faustings 2019. Shout outs to Frosty Faustings versus Big Game James and Hack at a Dawn's ranking event. And then finally we got Yuki and Sherwin at the very first Arcade UFO Jazzy event. And then you'll choose between that and Big Red and Eat from Frosty 2020. So how do you vote? All you gotta do is click on this link, tinyurl.com/jazzyretro1. And you can go ahead and just vote for which matches you think should advance in the tournament. And
Sick.
so hopefully you vote Telesniper and help us determine the top 8 Jazzy matches of all time. And vote for Telesniper and Dylan. They're also one of the
I,
nominees. Remember, all matches that make the top 8 will be restreamed on the Jazzy Circuit Retrospective. And so be
Sick.
sure to join us Tuesday, August 25th, which, incidentally, Telesniper, I don't know if you know this, falls on the 2-year anniversary of the very first Jazzy ranking event.
Nice.
And I wanted to just go ahead and just announce this now. But the very next Mutant XPerience podcast is actually going to be on that day, August 25th. And it'll be at a special start time. I think it's going to be around 5 or 6. Basically, it'll lead into the retrospective. And on my podcast, I'm going to have none other than Mash Legs and Fody from Scrub
Nice.
Series. Of course,
Yeah.
they were the Scrub Series were the ones who put on the very first Jazzy ranking event in history. It occurred on August 25th, 2018, at the Paradigm Grand Prix.
Cool.
And so remember that Soul Avenger, shout outs to Carrie, Soul Avengers was the first winner of a Jazzy event, the first ever Jazzy winner.
Nice.
And of course, he had that amazing grand final set with Big Bad Wolf. And so I'm gonna have the Scrub Series boys on the podcast next month, talk a little bit about themselves and the event and how Third Strike is sort of what's Third Strike's meant to them. But anyway, Telesniper, once again, thank you so much for being on the show. Is there anything
Absolutely.
that you'd like to say before we get out of here? The floor is yours, my friend.
A couple quick things. For the match voting, I don't blame anybody if they don't vote for my match versus Zylan because you don't usually vote for thieves, and I
Oh
wouldn't
no.
unless they're Robin Hood, and I wouldn't describe my Makoto as stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. Um,
Well, Goki versus Makoto, I mean,
it's I know. I doubt it'll reach him, but I really want Tominaga to stop doing late dashes for double Fukiage
okay.
and to learn how to corner push double Fukiage, please,
Oh no, tell us never.
please.
Okay.
That's it.
All
That's pretty
right.
much it. I want to thank you so much for having me on. I know
No
I've
problem,
been
tell us
wanting to do it
never.
for a while. Um,
We did it.
Thanks anybody who's stuck around for my incoherent ramblings for the most part. Um, it's been fun.
No, it was a
It's been
very
lots of fun.
informative podcast, and you're welcome back anytime, man. So once again, guys, this has been the Mutant XPerience podcast with tonight's special guest, telesniper. Follow this man on Twitter at telesniper. I'm pretty sure he has the same name in all of the different platforms that he plays on.
Pretty much.
Generally,
YouTube is telesniper XBL because somebody took
okay.
telesniper.
Someone took telesniper. Telesniper
What the
XBL.
hell?
Feel free to write that in the chat if you want telesniper. But we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. Thanks again, guys. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys on the next Mutant XPerience podcast next month.
Bye.